We got a couple folks in chat too. Ziggy, who I just met, and is it Dina?
You have Dina, Sandra, Starfire, and Zadi.
Okay, Zadi. All right. Well, guys, welcome. Real quick, for folks in the chat, could you just answer if you've been here to one of our classes before?
Sandra says yes. Dina is new.
Okay.
And Zadi have been to the first one.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Reason I ask, guys, is that we are going to kind of put together a lot of what we have learned so far. I think that overlearning is the best way to do things, and practical application is the best way to make things stick. So that's what we're going to do today. This is kind of also inspired by the Samhain season, right? This is the season of ancestor veneration. We talked about that a little bit. It's the season where we think about death, where we become a little bit more somber. The ritualization and things become a little bit more serious. So I wanted to kind of plug this in right here.
Okay, what did you say it was called again?
Samhain, and it's spelled Samhain, Samhain. I don't know if there's an E on it. Okay. All right. So in that spirit, what we're going to do is we are going to plan a mock pagan funeral. Okay. For those of you who have not been here before, my name is Lee Snyder, and I'm actually a funeral director here in Iowa. Another question I'd like to ask to everyone in chat: is everyone here in Iowa?
No.
No.
That's a heck of a drive.
I
know,
I do.
Okay. All right. Ohio.
Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome. Yes, from Sandra.
Okay. Yes, Altoona. Okay. So this is gonna be very Iowa specific. Okay. Funeral director licensure changes drastically from state to state. Okay. So everything that I say tonight is going to apply to Iowa only. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other states out there that have very similar laws than we do, but I just don't know what they all are. Okay, so I just want that to be apparent. All right. Lissa, my partner, is also a funeral director. So we'll kind of guide you guys through this. Now, this is going to be a bit of a mess, guys, and that's kind of by design. I want this to be as authentic as possible. All right. The idea is to get you guys thinking about the season for one, ritualization for two, and also practical application, because death is a part of all of our lives. You're going to need to plan your own stuff for your family, and I'm amazed, and I'm speaking to myself here, and this is from a person who lives in a funeral home and literally sleeps with dead people in their basement, how we can go into oh, this is the death zone, and then pop right back out of it, almost like you're popping out of the veil. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have to be caught. I think it's an animalistic thing where we protect ourselves from pain, but I think it's very important that we try to apply this. So even if you're a person who's not a pagan, if this is going to apply to you as well, because I'm going to use general information, we're going to use actual prices, I'm going to make it as authentic as possible. Okay. 4 folks in chat, I know that Yisa typed it in for us, but what I'd like you to do, we're going to play a little game. I want you to guess how much this funeral is going to cost, and I have a general description of it right under the header, class 4, and it says Mock Pagan Funeral. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a funeral here at the church for a person. Their full body is going to be here. They're going to be cremated afterwards, and then they're going to be buried in a private cemetery. Okay? I just would like you to take a random wild guess on how much all of that's going to cost when we're all said and done. All right. And then I have a second little game. We're going to do some show and tell here. Pass this around. Don't cheat. We'll hold this up to the camera so everyone can see. But what is this? We're going to write down your guess for what this thing is. We'll pass it around.
My grandson thinks it's a gun. He walks around going, pew, pew. I'm like, okay, buddy.
You already seen it?
I have, but I need to bring it closer.
Oh, okay.
Got it. All right. Yes, right.
All right, guys, if you just want to jot that down, what you think it is, we'll talk about that at the end too.
On the
Okay.
card or on the paper? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay. And then I know we have one person who is completely new. So new person, if you'd like to just do a little introduction, just say, hey, introduce yourself. That would be awesome.
True, something.
They're already typing in answers for the guys.
Oh, that's okay.
You know, and a star just dropped and came back, so maybe they're having internet problem.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll check in with them when they return. So, all right, guys, first thing we're going to do is we're going to open an arrangement conference just like I have to do every time, okay? There's certain things that I have to say either in the state of Iowa, because the state of Iowa tells me to, the federal government tells me I have to, or funeral home regulation tells me I have to, okay? First thing we have to talk about is a general price list. Yisa, could you go over to that tab for me, please? All right. Every funeral home in America is required to have a list of their prices. This list can only be changed once a year, okay? Funeral homes are required to give you this list anytime you ask for it or anytime they initiate a conversation about pricing to you, all right? We're going to use this. This one comes from Hamilton's Funeral Home, which is the largest funeral home in Iowa, and I do business with them, so I'm familiar with it, okay? Folks online, if you type in, they put the link in there, great, appreciate that. You can click on that and you'll see what we can see there as well, all right? So number one is I have to tell you what a general price list is. Number two, I have to talk to you about Social Security, okay? I will collect the Social Security number from the deceased person because it's my job to cancel that Social Security number, okay? So you do not need an extra death certificate to that. That's my third thing. But yeah, that's done internally between the funeral home and the Social Security Administration, okay? Generally, a person will, when they pass away, they're elderly enough to be collecting Social Security at the time of their death. And a lot of people have questions on how that works, okay? Also, there's something known as a Social Security death benefit. I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 255. Thank you, Lisa. $255 that the government will pay you, okay, to help with funeral services. But it's really kind of a ripoff because it only goes to dependent children and spouses. So if your children are grown, they do not get it. If your spouse has passed away, they do not get it, obviously. If you're not legally married, your partner does not get it, okay?
Oh, you're kidding me.
No. So next thing that we need to talk about is payment and how that works. So the funeral director will ask, did this person get their payment for this month for Social Security? Generally, the answer is yes, right? If they get paid in the month they die in, generally they get to keep that money because Social Security is always a month behind. So let's say our person that we're going to be talking about here died 2 days ago. So they have to live through the entire month to get paid, but Social Security is always a month behind. So they died in October. The money they received in October was actually for September, okay? If you receive any more payments after the death occurs, or after the month that the death occurs in, do not spend it because the Social Security Administration will realize it was a mistake and they will electronically take it back by whatever means necessary.
9 times out of 10, if you get it electronically, they will take it. Yeah, they will take it right back out.
Yep. And then the last thing that I have to talk about is funeral home policy on payment. Okay. In Des Moines, Iowa, I know that there are 0 funeral homes that will accept anything less than 100% payment upfront. Now, this can be done in different ways. Okay, cash, credit card, check if you have that kind of money laying around. If the person had life insurance, burial insurance, or anything of that nature, that can be used as well, but only if the insurance company agrees to assign it to the funeral home. What that means is you're not going to get a big check first and then and then we just like trust that you're going to pay us. They're going to pay us at the exact same time that they pay you for the exact amount of our contract.
Okay, so you can make that kind of arrangement. That if
Yes.
there's money coming from somewhere for
Yeah.
insurance, then,
As long as the
Yeah.
policy's good, not contestable,
okay.
and not under some sort of legal, case or
When I wrote my will a few years ago, the attorney suggested, because I have 3 kids, and so most of everything's going into a trust for them. But my sister's my executor, and she suggested on the life insurance policy, dedicating a certain amount to Becca as beneficiary for her to use to pay for funeral costs.
Yep. So how that would work, so that money dedicated to her would then have to still be assignable
Okay.
of her as a beneficiary that would go directly to the funeral home. And then I forgot to speak on one point, death certificates. Okay. Legally, I have to tell you what they are, how you get them, and what they're for. Okay. Death certificates are a legal document produced in the county of death that would prove to anyone who asks that the person is actually deceased. There's a difference between a certified copy and a Xerox copy or a digital scan. Okay. Some folks will need more than others. Okay, it depends on how much business that you have. Okay, death certificates are created in 2 parts. So I'm going to collect information from you on our dead person, biographical and statistical stuff. And then the doctor who declared death or the person responsible for signing the death certificate will sign on their end. That goes into an electronic system. I believe all states are electronic now. And then they are printed off at the courthouse, and we can get them at the funeral home for a certain amount of time. They give us a window to get them for you. Okay. Things that you would need a certified death certificate for would be any big accounts that require lawyers, things like trust funds, annuities, subsidies, hedge funds, stocks, bonds, well, sometimes bonds, anything of that nature. Okay. Smaller bank accounts like savings accounts and checking accounts will generally just need a scan or a Xerox copy, and they'll give the original back to you. All right. Property. If the person's name is on any property, you're going to need a certified death certificate for every address that they own. Okay. Also, if you have any retirement funds or anything of that nature set up, life insurance, all that stuff, they will retain a copy. Okay. Small things like cell phone bills, or cell phones, credit cards, automobiles, they do not want to keep an original copy. Most likely they will give the original back to you. And then really weird, but like Apple is a stickler, and pretty much all social media accounts, if you want to get them closed down, they will require a death certificate and much, much more for you to close down your social media. So that's kind of the spiel that I would give at the beginning of an arrangement conference. Okay. Now, first thing we're going to do, if we can flip back to our presentation, Yisa, I'm going to give you some jobs. Okay. So first thing we're going to do, if we go down to vital statistics and click on that, we're going to go around the room and we're going to build a person, basically.
Oh,
we're going to build somebody to kill. That'll be fun. So we're just going to we're just going to do kind of rocket style here. So I'm going to start. The first person, or the person's first name is Dane.
Okay.
Or Damien. Let's Damien. What's the middle name? Jack. And what's the last name?
Matter.
Matter. How do you spell that?
Matter.
Okay. All right. Date and time of death we already have. Okay. They died on the 25th, which would have been yesterday at 2:03 a.m. Okay, funeral home already has them in their care. And we will talk about embalming permission
You
here in
said
just a minute.
2 a.m.
2:03 a.m. All right. And I have here that they died at home. Okay. What is this person's sex, or would like to refuse that answer?
Ma'am.
And then what is their race, or would we like to refuse that answer?
No idea, Caucasian.
Caucasian. Okay. And ma'am, did this person have any Hispanic heritage?
No.
No. Let's go to Yisa. What was our marital status at the time of their death? Divorced.
And happy divorce is not an option.
Now let's go online here. What was their citizenship's an American? I need that for later on, so American. And they did serve in the armed forces. We'll know that. Let's go to our first person online. What was Damien's dad's full name?
Oh,
We're making things up here.
Yep. So be as funny as you want.
He was probably Jack.
Jack the
Just-
Ripper.
well, David's middle name is Jack. So.
Yeah.
How about Dina? Dina, give me a random full name for our deceased person, Damien's father.
Jack Damien.
Damien Sr. Okay.
Well, not really a senior because Damien's middle name is Jack.
Oh, yeah, it could be. I'm going to make him a senior for
Okay.
fun. Let's do that. And we'll say he didn't have a middle name. Okay. Next person online. Sandra. How about mom's name? And we need mom's name before she was married. So mom's maiden name.
Genevieve Diane Jones.
How do you spell that? G-E-N.
Vieve. Giane. Jones.
Okay. And then what we have that, I always forget.
Spouse's full legal name.
Oh.
They're divorced.
They're divorced. Good. So we don't need that. Occupation. Let's go to Alyssa again. Mortician.
You said the parents are divorced too?
I was gonna
That
say
doesn't
driver.
matter.
Yes.
The dead person's divorced.
Okay.
And that
so I decided
that would be funeral service.
I mean, a veteran status because it's honorable.
Yep. Veteran status is yes. But which branch were they in?
Maybe.
Navy. Okay.
Is the veteran status though, would it be,
We're going to get into that a little bit more, but
active, that kind of thing?
the technical answer is anybody with a document called a DD-214.
Okay.
So that is a discharge stating honorable service.
Mhm.
So, and then
Ranking
I'm-
service number.
And you
Rank and
probably have
service
to
number.
have one of those forms, don't you?
you have to have it, yes. And then we'll just make that up. And then certifier, I just made up a name. Willie Green, MD, will be the person certifying the death certificate. Okay. So we're going to break character here for a little bit. Did anybody here not know any of those things that I just asked about your parents or, okay, you need to know all of those things. That was not something I just made up. All of those things are required for a death certificate. Okay. So the ones that normally trip people up are like mother's maiden name. If it's like, you know, a person you don't know very well, you got to think about their mom and then what their mom was before they were married. Okay.
And nowadays, social security numbers as well, because a lot of people are very secretive with them. They're not on our driver's licenses anymore. And good places to find those social security numbers would be tax papers. If that person was on any kind of state assistance, you could call down to DHS and they'd say, give them, you know, they know because they're all connected. They've gotten the email that they're passed away. So you could get required from them as well. But you have to probably have to get your
So how often does this information change?
Has this been around for
50 years kind of a thing.
There's,
This form.
Yeah.
yeah,
The
so,
vital statistics form
yeah.
has basically been around for as long as they've had registered death certificates. Sometimes the
Okay.
questions change here and there, but not a whole lot. I mean, you can look at death certificates from 150 years ago, and they're basically have most of the same questions.
pretty recently, like I asked, for things like gender and for ethnicity, those are on there, but now you can refuse to answer.
Right.
So that's changed recently, probably within the last 20 years. So, yeah. Great. So let's move over to our next section, which is family tree. And just so you guys know what I would do, basically, I would plug everything into the Iowa system and then generate the death certificates for you. To get that first batch, it can take anywhere from a few days all the way up to a few months. It
And
just
I know
depends.
from experience, you always need more than you get.
Right. But I try to keep the number low at the front because they do cost money.
Mhm.
Okay. In Iowa, they're $15 a piece. Okay. You can always get more if you need them, but if you get a bunch, like I want 70 death certificates. I've actually had a person say that, and then they use 4. So like
We got 15.
You just gotta call
Yeah.
call your places
How many do you
first
use?
and find out what they want to receive.
I think we used 7, but my
That's
dad was
pretty good.
very worried we wouldn't have enough.
right. So
So-
yeah, and they are easier to get once they're processed the first time. You just call the county of death, and they will overnight them to you if you need them. Okay. Death certificates are public record too. Just with the last family I served, they were worried about them getting stolen. Anyone can look up anyone's death certificate. Okay. All right, so let's answer this question, and I think we're at you. How many death certificates does Damien Jack Matter need after all that stuff we talked about?
Is he wealthy and have a lot of property?
You get to make that part up.
Oh, I do.
Uh-huh.
He's filthy rich.
He's still too rich?
Yes, he's
20
one.
death certificates?
Yes,
Okay.
20.
All right. Lady, you're going to be my accountant, so you're going to do a running total. Okay. So that's 15 or 20 times 15. All right, guys. So let's go to this family tree part. Okay. Now, up here, I made this very complicated, but with blended families, things often get very complicated. And this is an important conversation to have. Okay. So I'm going to read the scenario here that we have. Okay. Note, the deceased person has been married 3 times. The deceased has both biological and stepchildren. One of the stepchildren has been legally adopted by the deceased person. The primary life insurance beneficiary, and we're going to say we have $100,000 to work with here today. Okay. The primary life insurance beneficiary listed on the policy is the deceased 3rd spouse. Actually, could you unhighlight that for me for just a second? I'm so sorry. And that spouse passed away last year. The contingent beneficiary on that same insurance policy is one of the stepchildren that was not adopted. Where are we at?
Deceased has a
Yeah.
designation.
The deceased has a designation of designee form stating that his funeral services will be controlled by the deceased's best friend who passed away 2 years ago. But the friend's spouse has volunteered their time to take over as designee for their spouse. The deceased has a will, and the executor of the estate is listed as one of the 3 siblings. Who has paramount rights? Who gets to control this funeral?
That would be the executor, wouldn't it?
No.
Wife.
The oldest biological child.
Okay, so we're going to break it down piece by piece. Okay, so
We're all wrong.
the deceased has been married 3 times. Okay, so wife 1 and wife 2 do not matter anymore. Okay.
Oh, I
So-
think they do.
So at this,
Sorry.
no,
One,
that's,
two, actually.
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. But legally speaking, you do not get to control the funeral.
Thank God. Just from
wife
there.
three does. Okay.
And do I want to?
Now, the deceased has both biological children and stepchildren.
Mhm.
Okay. Do stepchildren have any say?
No.
No, they do not. How about the stepchild who was adopted?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the current wife has passed away, correct?
Yes.
Assuming that it was a wife, we didn't get her name yet. So that would revert back to the children, okay? But only the adopted child and the biological children, okay? In the state of Iowa, half of them have to agree, okay? So I forget, how many did we say we had total?
3.
Doesn't say.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say? Okay.
It says both
It's
biological
one
and step.
stepchild.
And then down there, so he has 2 biological children,
Oh,
And one
Oh, down
adopted.
lower. Oh.
yeah,
this is like a math question.
I know.
Yeah.
This is my
So there's
life.
3 people who get to control the funeral.
Yep, so
So at
2 of
least 2
them
have
have
to
to
agree.
agree. Okay. All right, but then the plot thickens, okay? So we come to the insurance policy part. The beneficiary is the wife who passed away. Can that person collect on the insurance if they're passed away?
No.
No. So it would go to the contingent beneficiary, right? Who is one of the unadopted stepchildren. Does anybody see our problem here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because the adopted stepchild is not in there.
is not in control of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
funeral.
And has
And
no
neither are
obligation
the-
to share the
the
money
natural
to
children.
pay for the funeral.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we get that designee form, or I'm sorry, that insurance assignment form to say they have to get the funeral home the money.
Yeah.
They could refuse to do that altogether. Okay. The plot thickens. Okay. Next, we have what's called a designee. Okay. A designee is a form, and there's only one form that will do this. Wills do not count, nothing. One form, it's called a declaration of designee form in the state of Iowa. And this can make anybody you want in control of your funeral. They don't have to pay, but they can be in control of it. Okay. Very important with queer individuals. Okay. Let's say that you've transitioned, and let's say that the person who controls your funeral does not agree with your transition. They have every legal right to dead name you and bury you looking exactly how they want you to look, and saying exactly everything that they want to say about you. Okay, so very important if you're in a situation at all. Queer is just one situation. Okay, but if you're in any ambiguity about how you want things controlled, you need to designate one person legally. Okay, but in our situation, that person's dead. Okay, so but we have a spouse who says, "Hey, I'm that person's legal next of kin, so that falls to me, right?" What do you guys
Does
think?
it?
No.
Does it?
No.
Correct, right? Because just because you're a spouse of someone who signed a contract does not mean you signed that contract. Okay, so we are back to the children controlling it, but only the biological children and the adopted child. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. It's not always that complicated, but it's been that complicated and worse in some situations.
Are we assuming that the kid who's getting the money will pay for the funeral?
Well,
What if these people can't pay for the funeral?
that's a good question. So we are going to assume for our purposes that we will have access to the money, that everything is assignable, and that this stepchild is going to play ball and will basically write a blank check for whatever their stepbrothers and sisters want. Okay, 2
I
of them.
didn't know this was the topic when I brought up the conversation in the car.
It's funny, because we were talking about planning a funeral earlier.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is the boring legal stuff, guys. It doesn't have much to do with paganism. I mean, it does, because if you're a pagan, you're going to have to deal with this anyway. But this applies to absolutely everyone. Okay. Again, check your state laws for our Ohio person. Things do change from state to state.
Quick question, the designee form,
Yes.
is that specific to Iowa? Would that be different state by state, or is that?
Every state's going to have something like that.
Okay.
And then somebody brought up a question, executor. Executor has nothing to do with a funeral. Okay. I'm not going to name anyone, but I recently had a family. There was a person who said, "Oh, look, I'm the executor on the will. I'm entitled to everything." So they went and they took everything out of the house. They took all of the things and all of this. Nobody explained to that person what a executor is supposed to do. Okay, an executor, their job is to make sure money goes where it's supposed to go from the estate. They get nothing other than a small percentage fee or something like that, depending on what it is. Okay, so that person committed a lot of felonies. All right. And then I just kind of had that there for just so we can kind of see the family dynamics. All right. All right, let's move on to our next one. That's the only clickable one, but we'll bring up.
So only way the executor could get any of that stuff was if it was in the will.
Correct. They could have stuff bequeathed to them, but it would have to be specifically bequeathed to them. Not they just don't get things because you're an executor.
I'm gonna ask a question, and
Sure.
if it overly complicates things, we
No.
just don't have to address it. What if there's a power of attorney?
Power of attorney ends at death.
That's a
Okay,
living
thank
soul.
Yeah.
And so is medical power of attorney too.
So
I knew medical power of attorney was, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Living soul.
So you're in this weird liminal space where it goes back to consanguinity is the term meaning next of kin or blood relative.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys, we're going to talk about service details. This is where we veer back into paganism. Okay. And this is kind of the fun part, if there is a fun part of planning a funeral, is kind of planning exactly what you guys want to do. Okay. Lady, do you want to pull up the Hamilton's GPL? We have it up here too, but yeah. Okay, and Alyssa's going to keep a running total for us. All right. So I talked about embalming earlier. Question for the table and anyone here: is it required to embalm a body?
I think it is. I mean, if you're not going, I know that the natural, decomposition is available in some states, like California, where I'm from. You could get a permit basically to bury your loved one naturally.
Right. So that's what most folks think, and it's completely wrong. Okay. Funeral homes like you to think that, because if I can get you to embalm, and I don't want to say that all funeral homes are evil and things like this, but it's just how things work. So I try to be a good funeral director who does not do this stuff and educate people. Okay. All of the funeral homes I've worked with here in Iowa, I've never found a bad one, really. Okay. Hamilton's, where I've the biggest one in Iowa, they are by the book, letter to letter on everything. But there are shysters out there. Okay. So, except in special circumstances, and they have to be very special circumstances, it's completely 100% up to the family if embalming takes place. Okay. Now, with that being said, if you're going to have a public viewing of the body, which we are in our scenario here at the church, the funeral home can require that you embalm that body. Okay. Or give you options on how you could get around that, cremating before, all of this. Okay. If you're going across state lines, you do have to be embalmed. Okay. If a coroner or medical examiner can order that a person be embalmed to preserve a person who's under medical investigation where there's no cooling available. Okay. Now, in Iowa, we have what's called a 72-hour law. And it's kind of a weird state. There's not many of them left like this. But in Iowa, you have 72 hours to decide on initial preparations. So you have 72 hours from the time of death to embalm that person, put that person in cooling, or begin the cremation process. Or entomb, or remove them from the state, which would require embalming. So that kind of is a misnomer there. Okay. But just know you do not have to, by state or local or federal law, have to embalm a body, except for in those situations.
Okay, you could cremate, just.
You could. Yep, you certainly could.
Or you can bury the body, the direct burial without embalming as well.
Okay.
Yeah. In Iowa, that would have to happen within 72 hours.
So if it's winter, you can't.
Yeah, in Iowa, we
Right?
can.
You can?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, because the ground's not that
So
frozen to do.
The person in our example wants a,
Yeah, so the person in our example wants to have the funeral at the funeral home, or I'm sorry, at the church.
with
So,
their body there.
with their body there. So what I'm going to explain everything that I just explained to you, and then I'm going to say it's not a federal regulation or a state law, but the funeral home would require that. Okay, and so you would basically have to assent if you wanted to use our funeral home. Okay, and this is going to.
Churches require it too, like, I'm sure the church.
Churches really they leave it up to the funeral home.
Gotcha.
They're not really knowledgeable on all of that, but most of them would prefer it, yes. So lady, we got embalming's on there. Okay. What's embalming cost, lady, just for everyone to know?
$795.
And that's pretty, it fluctuates a little bit, but yeah.
There's like required extra care for special bariatric care or autopsy cases. Sometimes require extra, or trauma cases require extra care.
We'll say that this person didn't have any of that. They just passed away. Okay, so next part we need to do, we're going to be going to the church. We're going to have them end something, okay? Cremation families, I really like the idea that you can have the body present because I think that's important for people and still have cremation as your preferred disposition. However, in a lot of funeral homes, cremation families are still kind of treated second class manner, all right? This is an example of that in my opinion. So if you're going to bury this person, I could show you caskets, probably 100 selections of caskets that I sell, ranging anywhere from probably around $2,000 minimum entry, all the way up to $30,000+. Okay, for cremation families who want to view their person, and you have one option. Issa, can you show us what the option is?
You told me that.
Yep. So this is a cremation casket, or a rental casket. All right. How it works is that you can see that the foot drops down and that there is a cardboard insert that goes into it. Okay. After the festivities, the person's removed inside of the second box, the cardboard box, and that's what they're cremated inside of. Okay. Yeah.
But like during COVID, a lot of people were forced to go ahead and cremate. And then maybe, just have the ashes at the funeral later.
Right. Yep. In the beginning, certainly, because they didn't know what, it was very much, are people still contagious after death? Will embalming prevent
Yeah,
it?
before they
That
knew,
kind of stuff.
but afterwards, no. But if you wanted to view your person that had COVID, they had to be involved. But they did not have to be.
But maybe they didn't even have COVID, but they died during COVID.
Yeah.
Still complicated thing.
Yep. It's horrible.
And Lisa brought up a good point. You can be cremated inside of any wooden casket, really, right? So we could cremate the entire thing, but you would only be seeing it for that short amount of time and then burning it, okay? Common for Eastern religions, they do that a lot. Hinduism and Buddhism will cremate an entire casket that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. But for most people, it's not really cost effective, okay? Next thing we need to talk about, we're having a service. So there's going to be a charge for us to have that service. Okay? So we're going to put that on $745 just to have the service. Now, do we want to have a visitation? A visitation is the thing where you stand around and talk and have it open with just all of that. What do you guys think? We want to have one? Sure. Okay. How much does that cost?
So $595.
Another $595. Okay. Yeah.
Now, question. Sorry, you go ahead. Does the church charge for that, or does the funeral home
Funeral home
charge?
charges for that.
They have to transport the body to the funeral home, and in order for a body to leave there and be somewhere, there has to be a licensed funeral director with it at all times.
Okay, that makes sense. Is the fee for the visitation, like my dad's was all of one day and then a few hours the next before service?
Yep.
Is that the whole rate for both of those days, or is that a per day charge?
The price list that we're using, if it's still the way that I think it is, if we want to do everything in the same day, it goes down a little bit, I think, to $300.
$315, but
$350,
yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. But the night before visitation, that's a couple hours long, it's $595.
Okay. What else are we gonna need? Oh, let's talk about flowers. Okay. Yeah. So flowers are generally, when you have a casket present.
No, I said I did buy flowers.
Yeah. Generally, when you have a casket present, they'll do what's called a casket spray on top of it. Okay. Any guess on what those would cost? Just ballpark.
It was a couple hundred. Yeah.
$350.
You can get one for like $185,
They're
but
gonna be very expensive.
yeah, you may as well just get a bouquet and arrange it.
But we have $100,000 to work with, so let's buy a $350 casket for you, lady.
I've learned not to say funeral or weddings or flowers.
Yeah.
And to word it a different way.
Instead of sending flowers, the family would like you to
Yeah.
make a donation to the local pet sanctuary.
All right, guys. How about memorial folders? Those are those little pamphlets that we hand out, and then we'll need like a book to sign in with. We're talking about print goods. Okay. What do you guys think those cost? And that's a package. So you get the print goods, which are the folders. You get the register book, and then you get thank you cards to take home to send out to people who showed up.
Thank you, cards. I know we're not Christians necessarily here, but man, today it's so easy to write those up.
Yeah.
So how many does it come?
So does it specify on there, lady?
So, well,
Like a minimum.
so this one, I think they do up to $300, 300 programs for the $150, but I think you can get like an extra set of programs or whatever for $300.
So we're more than 300 people coming to this guy's funeral.
You said he's filthy rich, so.
Yeah.
So we might have to throw another $300 down for extra folders.
Okay, so we're gonna do double batch. Okay.
All everyone, middle of the county, living together.
Are we live streaming? I'm just kidding.
I don't think they have that on theirs, but
What are folders?
the memorial pamphlets that folks will hand out will have like the picture on the front, the obituary on the back, and all of these things. And this, and I'm gonna, for pagans specifically, they're not gonna know how to make a good folder for you guys, so you should probably learn how to do it yourself, and then you could avoid this charge. Okay, it's very simple. I'm gonna give you the secret key to it right now. If you want to pay a little bit of money, Canva, CANVA. Yeah, and that's what pretty much every funeral home uses or something like it. But you can make a free folder in Google Documents in Google Slides. Okay, literally you change the size of it to an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You do 2 slides. On the second slide, after you make it, you rotate everything upside down on that second one, and you hit print. You
Just
fold
make
them in
sure
half.
you get some nice papers.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
in this digital age, is this old style or custom traditional style of printing out programs still a thing?
So mostly yes, for that part. When we talk
Okay.
about obituaries and things like that in newspapers, that's different. But most families will have that program there just because that's the physical, tangible thing that they get to take home. So a lot
Here
of
at
folks
church,
choose that.
we do them.
Okay.
So yeah, but that's a good way to save money is to do your own folders. Okay, and then register books you can buy them for $10 wherever. Yeah, and thank you cards, same thing. Let's see, where are we at? So let's start paganifying this thing. Okay, let's think about the church. Everybody knows the layout of the church, right? Okay, and we've kind of described rituals. We've described altars. What's one thing you think might be a little different for a pagan ceremony than it would be for a more like Christian ceremony or something of that nature?
Well, that one funeral for that child that you showed us, that was completely different.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking about here specifically for the layout, which room do we always have our rituals in?
Usually Griffin.
Right. So we would use a hall instead of like a traditional everybody staring at the wall type of
Unless it
thing.
was outside.
Unless it was outside, and here we would have we could possibly go outside and do things in the labyrinth, which is shaped like a circle and all that stuff. So one thing to do if you're ever in charge of planning your own funeral or for another pagan, and again, I know this is going to be super personal to every single person, guys, but generally the person would be in the middle and the circle would be cast around the deceased person. Okay, so that's something that you can think about when you're doing your spatial setup. So, you know, if you want to still call your quarters, if you want to build an altar around the person in the middle, the remains in the middle, those sort of things are important.
Firewood for the funeral pyre.
In Missouri and Colorado, yes.
In Missouri.
Those the only states that you can do funeral pyres now?
Those were the last ones that I knew of, but it might have changed.
Oh,
Things
wow.
actually been getting more progressive in that area, so they might have changed, but still not here in Iowa yet. Yeah, we're going there next. So we're having this at the church, right? Let's say that Issa's going to officiate for us. All right. What are we going to pay Issa? What do you think is a regular fee for an officiant?
$150 an hour.
Pretty close. So really for the service, we generally charge around $200, $250 for the officiant. Okay. And these are what we call honorariums. All right. This is money that we'll pay for you that you're going to pay us back with. Okay.
I have another question, because the 2 funerals I planned were Catholic funerals.
Oh boy, here we go.
And so I had to give a tip to the priest, is how I remember it
what that
being
is.
phrased,
Yeah.
but it was a significant amount of money.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Was it more than 250?
I remember it was $250, maybe $300.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
probably, that's what we're talking about here.
Okay,
Also, you probably had a cantor, someone singing.
Yep.
So that's another 250. You probably had crucifier, the person walking up front. That's about $50. You probably had. Did you have lunch at the church?
No.
Okay.
altar boys.
Altar boys, they generally get about $5-10 a piece. Then you pay them in cash.
So do they have to pay for church rental? Because those usually Catholic are 4-hour funeral.
We did not have the mass.
Okay.
We did, it still wasn't 4 hours, but.
Yeah.
The church actually does charge here, yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
So and it depends.
If you are a member, no.
Right.
But if you are not a member, then you pay us.
And that's pretty par for the course,
Yeah.
like about that. But let's talk about that. Do we want to, for Damien, do we want to have live music for him?
I love guitar.
You love
Why
guitar?
wouldn't we have an acoustic guitar player?
She's also rich, so we obviously
Yeah.
need like a whole band.
I think
Oh.
Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Even the Foo Fighters can come.
I don't think we can get them under $100,000, but you know. But let's say
I do those.
a bag. That's common. Yeah, bagpipers are common.
Yeah.
So let's say we wanted a musician, and let's say that it's going to be like a guitar and piano accompaniment.
Yep.
So whatever,
$200 an
$200
hour
a piece. Yeah. And then let's talk about lunch. Okay. Do we want to have? And again, we're thinking in a pagan space here, guys. What do we want to do for our meal or celebration?
Catering.
Catering. Okay. Where are we going to cater from?
Around here, Hy-Vee is.
I would say Hy-Vee,
Okay.
don't you have to?
But
You can
Gateway
cater
Market
anywhere you
is the more
want.
preferable.
Oh wait, it's the south side, you could cater from Baradas,
True.
Skips,
Skips.
Skips.
Yeah.
Get some Sing Sao,
Uh-huh.
get some Chinese,
Catering.
No
Catering?
Pisanos though.
Okay.
Let's pretend that there's a
Domino's
better
pizza.
Yeah, little pizza.
So the way I break that down generally, my
It's old Fratellis.
old
Here's your little meal.
Olive Garden, get the unlimited
Hey,
breadsticks.
South side one, Gwen.
It's true.
Oh. So
South side.
and let's go. He's a popular guy. How many people do we think we're going to have here?
Well, we
Didn't we
ordered,
only get 300 programs?
no, we got
We did
600.
600
Oh.
people.
He was a ladies
650
man.
You wasn't there.
Yeah. So let's go with 600 is good because we got that amount of folders, right?
Yeah.
Okay, to feed 600 people, let's say for Hy-Vee, what would you call? What would
Is
it,
it-
Is it up to $11 a plate now?
it's about
$12 a plate?
yeah. So this will be the minimum option. This is like your regular ham sandwich and all
For
that stuff.
650 people.
$20 a person.
It'll round out to about $10 a plate on the low
They
end.
give you a discount.
Yeah. So what are we looking at?
$7,000.
$7,200 to feed everyone ham sandwiches. All right, now.
Possible, I wonder.
10 grand to add cookies.
Yeah. So now in a real case scenario, guys, it's not going to be that bad, but it's still. Yesterday, I catered Subway in Carlisle, And for cookies, chips, and subs, not including drinks or anything else, it was $411 for 40 people.
How much do we charge here when we just bring cookies and stuff? How much do we charge the families?
You mean like if we bring stuff?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think.
I think they give a donation or something.
Right.
That would be a question to
I don't
ask
think
the
we charge, like,
memorial committee.
Member
Yeah,
versus
I'd have to ask
non-member.
Lynn. I don't think there's a regular charge.
Gotcha.
It's like a donation. If they're a member,
If there are member people who bring stuff in.
That's usually how it
We have-
is. Most churches, you pay the church ladies for their time.
yeah, we have coffee and tea and whatever, and then people bring bars or cookies.
But this is 600 people. It's
Yeah,
not
but
gonna
this
work
is
at
a
church.
meal.
We're having this
Yeah,
at
I know.
Ivy Hall.
Well,
I mean,
we're gonna pull a Jamie case. We're gonna have it here, but we'll just have chairs outside.
Outside,
It'll be
okay.
fine.
oh
Anyway,
boy.
Is there, I have never attended nor thought about a pagan funeral. Is there anything traditional for a meal?
so
Bread.
if we're thinking inside of the service, we would probably want to have something for cakes and ale. Right?
Yes.
So
Okay.
cakes and ale
Oh,
is
cakes and ale,
generally
okay. I
a
thought you said snail.
snail.
Cakes and snails.
So cakes and ale is it's kind of sort of a sacrament type ritual or an offering ritual where people imbibe in whatever elixir they have, whether that be wine or whatever you're having. Ale is the traditional thing, and then some sort of bread product, right? Like which lends the Gwen is the master of the bread, but yeah.
I'm not a master of anything.
Well, you made a lot of it that
Your
one time.
goodies are great.
Yeah, I remember. I ate that too. It was like we brought a little home. But yeah, all right, back on task. So where are we at with the church lady? I think we get pretty much everything covered for service.
So
Okay.
you need are you wanting a total?
You have to
Not yet.
pay
We're
the,
not even close to
Okay.
done.
you have to
uh,
pay the officiant, whoever the minister.
So you got the two musicians on there and the
or
officiant.
priest.
And here are you gonna have to pay the tech guys if you want to run the sound?
Oh,
Oh,
we forgot the tech guy. Yeah.
So they're.
Especially if you're gonna put it on Zoom for family that couldn't.
I'm officiating a wedding for somebody and they said that the DJ cost for them was estimated to be $5,000.
Thankfully, I don't have to deal with DJs generally at funerals, but
Yes.
yeah, that's right. Let's see. Oh, we forgot
I have a
our
really nice Bluetooth speaker.
one thing that's on there. So even to get started right out of the gate, the funeral home's going to charge you what's called a basic service fee. That's just an overhead cost for them to take on the case. For this price list that we're using is $2,725. So that's on top of everything we talked about. We don't have our cremation fee on there yet, do we, lady?
Now it's $75 for a cremation permit, but it's down here underneath the action chances.
So we got to file a permit with the state, and that's going to cost you $75. And then in order to operate the retort, what are they charging for that
Cremation.
nowadays?
What was that? What kind of fee?
The cremation fee to
Oh.
actually burn the body.
It's the gas.
Yeah.
Does that go up like if you have a higher body mass that requires a
does.
longer burn?
Bariatric care.
Yep, it
It's
could.
$185 extra. Cremation fee is. They don't write it down, do they?
No, they don't. Let's just put $750 on there because I know that's what it
Okay.
costs. So
Yeah.
it runs about $750 to do the actual burning process. Okay, and then so now I think we're kind of done at the church. So we need to move on to burial, right?
Yep.
So are we going to bury the cremated remains in a urn?
Don't you legally have to?
Great question. What do you guys think?
I think yes, because I had to.
No.
My dad is still in the original box and not in an urn because my mom doesn't know what to do
Okay.
and where to spread his ashes. So no, that's okay. No, so Yeah, and same with my brother-in-law. He's
Uh-huh.
still in.
I see.
It's because I took them to Wisconsin. That's why I had to put them in something
Okay.
legally.
So again,
Solidified.
this is the cemetery's fault, but there's no such thing as legally having to purchase any sort of urn at all.
Or even across state lines, you don't have to,
Yeah.
that's just a lie.
Yeah.
Burial transit, all you need is a piece of paper. You could hold them you could take them in a gallon Ziploc baggie if you wanted.
I wanna see you carry your
That's
mom.
that's honestly
Urns
what
are
my
in
brother-in-law
cemetery
and my
rule and
dad are.
regulation
They're in a
only.
bag.
So the cemetery might have
Oh,
required it.
Okay.
But if they
But not
told
to
you
take
that
it, yeah.
you legally had to, that was a lie.
Yeah.
And they,
Okay.
that's, yes.
I'm trying to imagine your mom, she's a Ziploc, she's so pissed. Sorry.
We would have put her in a scotch bottle if we had the option.
I
She would have
cremated
enjoyed that.
my dad in his refrigerator box, because God damn it, he wasn't gonna pay me $75 for that box to cremate him in.
I just heard a story about some woman found a bottle because this guy had never been able to do the trip he wanted to do or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they put some of his ashes in a bottle with a note,
Mhm.
put it in the water, and somebody found it out there somewhere. Got in
Hopefully
touch
they
with him and told him where he ended up.
Hopefully they got
And then
him to
they-
where he needed to
And
go.
then she just asked him to put it back and put it back in the water, let him travel some more.
Traveling.
Yeah,
I
do
thought-
you have to, with the state, say, okay, I'm gonna spread these ashes at this state park? Do you have to let them know where you did that?
Another great question. What do you guys think?
I don't think they let you do
I don't
that.
know
I
if
feel
it's
like it is illegal.
It is illegal to scatter cremated remains.
That's what I thought,
So
okay.
don't
Unless
tell
it's
anybody.
private
But yeah,
property.
now here's the other side of that. Who's gonna stop you and who's gonna
Nobody
prove that
knows
you
when the
did
sun
that?
goes down what you
Okay.
do.
Yeah.
But, so technically speaking, you are not allowed to scatter cremated remains outside of a scattering garden, which is a part of a cemetery.
Or private
So
property.
why is
Money, generally.
that?
Well, okay, two things.
Because they don't want, because they consider cremation and burial both a final form of disposition, and they don't want people just scattering bodies. If they say it's okay to scatter cremated remains, people are just gonna start scattering bodies. People don't. They gotta have rules for,
Everything.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they didn't even have cemetery and funeral laws until 1984. Is that when it came into fruition?
Yeah.
Funeral law, 84?
1984?
1984, yeah.
Well, that feels like a pretty much sense, so.
Well, it's a very taboo topic, nobody wanted to talk about it, or
Yeah.
if they got funeral records, there was a black book that went around between all the directors, and that was all that communication there was. They didn't really regulate it in the FTC, which is the Funeral Trade Commission.
I was
Right.
curious when
I know,
when you said that, geez, I was like, they were getting funeral directors?
No, they do, and that's the Federal Trade
Trade
Commission.
Commission.
Yeah.
So that's who
Really?
says we
Yeah.
have to have the GPL. That's the exact department that it's under on
I
a
used
federal
to know
level.
about it,
Interesting.
Yeah.
but yeah.
So guys, let's say we're gonna use an urn, okay? So we've established that you don't have to, all right? But some cemeteries, same thing, they'll say you have to have an urn, outer burial container of some sort to bury your cremated remains. You have the option not to bury there, right? But it is not a state or federal law that you have to have an urn. You can use anything, they'll fit
We
inside.
just put the ashes in our garden though.
I think so.
That worked just fine.
They dig a hole.
Did you go? Yeah.
They want to be in our garden down here.
Uh-huh.
We have a memorial garden.
What about
Doug digs a hole.
Yeah, Doug, exactly.
Doug digs a hole.
Yeah.
And
Dig Doug.
after the
dug it.
service,
Uh-huh.
then they take it down there
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yes, but
and put it in.
Yes, I've
And
seen
then
him do
cover it
it.
up. Yeah.
So another thing, and this is something that we're being recorded. So technically speaking, the church should probably look at that because the lands are now technically a cemetery, correct?
But it's private property.
Well, actually, technically, it's a graveyard because it's on a church.
Yeah, it's private property.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The church is privately owned.
Yeah, if it was a full body, you would have to.
Right, we don't do that,
Right.
just ashes.
No, you could, if it was private property, you just have to have an entrance and an exit for
Exit
eternity.
for eternity for people to go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does have to be registered as a pioneer cemetery or a family cemetery technically.
Yes, you gotta
Yes.
register it, but yeah,
Anyway,
you can get
I
a-
digress.
you can get a burial permit for private property for full body work.
Correct. So you could bury someone on your own property, full body. Could. But there is a stipulation.
Betas.
You would have to, that person's family has to have entrance and egress onto that property for all of time.
Eternity.
Oh.
So,
So remember the cemetery in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
busted,
Like out by Jordan
and they
Creek?
wanted to move it? And they
Did
couldn't
not see
because
poltergeist?
there was no, what'd you say, Becky?
Did they not see poltergeist?
Right? So in order to move it, they would have had to contact an ancestor of somebody that lived there, or that somebody's buried there in order to get permission to get this determined permit.
That makes sense.
Nobody is living.
So I guess they
So-
changed the direction
So
of
they
the road.
took the road around it instead.
That seems wise.
In my basement, I have ashes from a whole bunch of dogs.
yeah. So you're gonna be buried with them, right? Or cremated with them? Yeah. Cool. All right, guys, let's say we need an urn, okay? I got a book. Who wants a job?
I'll take it.
Okay. As a collective, before you open it up, what kind of urn do we want?
Well, he's rich.
Yes.
Solid gold.
That's not in there, but that would
We
be
gotta be able to move it,
Has to be
man.
under $100,000.
Marble.
marble. That's something. Okay.
It's classy.
Gotcha.
Elegant, refined.
So what? What's that?
Sorry.
No, we'll get there. What we talked about, we're going to say no that the cemetery does not require an urn vault. So, but they do require an impermeable container. So marble would work. So go through there, just flip through there. We'll give you some time. We'll come back to you, but find us a nice marble urn, and we'll get a cost on it. All right. While we're talking,
Marble, those are eco-friendly.
while we're talking about cemeteries, somebody's gonna have to dig the hole, right?
Yeah.
What do you think it costs?
Duck, apparently.
Duck. But if we're inside the letter of the law, how much do you think it costs to dig a hole for a urn?
200.
2,000.
No. But
500
no.
bucks.
300?
Yes, it's closer. 350 is generally what
Unless
what
it's-
yeah.
Chapel Hill.
So are we
Sunset,
firing up the
isn't it?
Bobcat with the screw auger to go down like 6 feet?
I think
very
cheap. Yeah, duck is very cheap.
Okay, so you're calling it 350?
350
Duck
is
is
what
very
Josh Snyder would
cheap.
charge.
350 for what?
To dig the
Dig
hole
a
for
hole
the
and
urn.
close.
I wish someone would
That,
give me
that's
that
for,
discount.
for the urn.
Oh,
Yep.
no, I was
Yep.
there.
So from our scenario, the gray space has been purchased, so we don't have to worry about that. And there's a existing private headstone that's already been erected, so we don't have to talk about that. However, this person was a veteran, and they do want a secondary military marker affixed to the original headstone. Okay,
Do they also want a 21 gun salute?
that's a great question. I think generally they would.
They would want it, however,
It's
They don't
expensive.
get it unless you're active,
you
right?
can pay to have them do it.
Oh, you still
You can
can?
pay to have anything done, absolutely. They have things called professional mourners. Anyway, yeah, you can definitely have it.
Professional mourners?
Whaling.
I mean, that's been as old as civilization.
Yeah.
The whalers.
So I'll explain that we're getting into the military part now. I wanted to have the discussion on. So the marker that they're going to get from the military is free, okay? Because they can have that because of their service. Also, they can have a pagan emblem.
Mhm.
Well, I think there's 3 options. There's Thor's hammer, pentagram, pentacle. I'm sorry, and one more. That symbol you looked up, I think.
You can also get a dream catcher for Native American,
Correct.
but it is Triskel, how do you say it?
Triskelion.
Triskelion.
I believe that is an option as well.
Or a triquetra.
Yes, that. Yes. Okay.
And they also offer the inverted pentagram with the Baphomet in the middle.
They do not. No.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Rejected.
Now, but let's seriously talk about the military stuff, okay? What is a veteran entitled to at their graveside service for free that the military will provide? In this case, it was the Navy.
If you have accompanying DD 214.
Yep, flag is correct. Okay. That's for free. What else will the military do for you?
Isn't that usually they have like this,
The
like
bugler?
a sergeant, is somebody in the ranks of the military there?
Yep. So they'll send you 2 personnel to fold the flag. Okay. And one of those people will also play taps.
Taps,
Okay. Is the rifle volley, that's the technical term for what most people call the 21 gun salute. Does everyone get that?
I don't think they do. I think you have to be active for that, don't you?
More than active.
Yeah.
And it's a certain level,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Okay.
Just for fun, a 21 gun salute is a thing, but it's reserved for presidents. And that's firing cannons off of ships.
Yeah.
So,
21 times.
yeah, it's a little bit excessive. So yeah, and the military marker will be for free. Okay.
But elaborate on the requirements for getting it.
Oh,
So you have-
die in battle, right?
Oh, to get the 3-gun volley.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone who died in active duty, they're going to get a full active duty military burial. I've been a part of a few. They're pretty crazy, but there will be 6 military pallbearers. There will be the 21 gun salute. There will be the people to fold the flag. There has to be a commander there of a certain rank or higher. Transporting the body is done in military fashion. So like an example, we had a fallen soldier fly into Omaha, and you drive out onto the tarmac with the coach. They put the casket in, draped in the flag. We had 2 family vehicles, and it's a military operation at that point. So we were flying down 35 at about 90 mile an hour. We had 1 stop that we were allowed to make at a gas station, so the family could pee. There was 5 minutes. We'd be back in the vehicles, and we were 90 mile an hour going down to the funeral home. So, and that's because it's a convoy, and convoys don't stop. So, and you're
Did you go
instructed.
to Offutt?
What's that?
Did you go to the Air Force Base? When you
No, we went
Omaha?
this was from the Omaha tarmac, like when the plane landed, it pulled up.
The public airport.
Yeah, public
Okay,
airport. Yep, from there to Hamilton's funeral home downtown. So, yeah, those guys, you have military vehicles all around you, and if someone gets in the way, they don't stop. So that's just, they do it exactly like they would a convoy. Other things for,
So just out of curiosity, I know it's very popular in California. I don't know based in this because I'm from there. But I think I've only seen it once here in Iowa, where the police escort the family from the services to the ceremony.
yep, so
Is that a thing here?
it is. So like
Okay.
in Carlisle and Indianola, I can call the police and they'll be like, yeah, we'll give you an escort. But it's if they are available. So it's not guaranteed. Most people remedy that by using private security. So the private security basically gets deputized for that time period. They approve the route that they're going to take, and then they'll have a fleet of 2 to 3 to 5 cars, depending on where you're going, how big the line is, all that stuff. That'll stop at traffic lights and make sure that the procession to the cemetery doesn't have to stop.
You actually have to file a funeral procession permit sometimes.
And you also should let them know that you're going to be doing gun salute too. You gotta call the police station. Let them know, so they're not freaking out.
That's a very good idea.
We have
Shit,
some-
I ran a cemetery for a long
Oh,
time,
we
and
got
one
some
time
stuff
I
in
got
chat.
in trouble for, my guys hitting a telephone line. They came and they're like, why didn't you call before you dug? You know, call 511. And I'm like, it's. I do daily.
Do we have some questions in chat?
Oh, there were some statements.
Oh, statements. Cool. What are our statements?
Sandra said, my husband's local volunteer, I don't know what VFW stands for.
Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Veteran of Foreign Wars did 21 gun salute and flag presentation. Gina says, we are a military family, retired also gets the 21 gun salute, but yeah, sometimes it's the VFW guys.
And just those gentlemen, VFWs, Legions, will provide that, and it would generally cost $350 to $375 is what they would charge. Unless they're a member, then they would probably do that for free. They will also step in, like I've had it where the Navy folks that were coming, they couldn't make, they were late or they got something happened, and the Legions and VFWs will step in and do the flag folding ceremony as well. And then there's also auxiliary groups like the Patriot Guard Riders, which is like a motorcycle club that will follow veterans for free and things like that and be a part of the procession.
And a lot of times in the winter, the guys from Offutt won't come, and so Dean Brands guys will come down and do it too.
Yep. But that was a great comment. Thank you so much. Do we have any other comments? Awesome. We put 375 on there for gun salute. All right, guys. So I think that's a relatively complete list of all of our charges.
Oh, do you still need the?
Oh, I forgot the urn. What do we got for an urn cost?
$298 is the most expensive marble urn.
298. We'll put that on there. Anybody think there's anything we missed or anything that would be added? Anything in chat?
I wanna know what is the cheapest service.
The cheapest service, it really depends. So,
Built ones.
yeah. Okay. It's if you wanted like a direct cremation, which is the cheapest thing that can be done, and that's almost none of this will be involved. That's generally around $2,000 to $2,500. That's simply for cremating the body and returning the cremated remains to you, plus filing a death certificate, cremation permit, and doing all the legal stuff required. So that's the absolute bare bones minimum that it would be.
Bare bones.
I didn't even know I did that.
Shit.
Let's see.
He actually has said that.
I think the average funeral, like for what we would do, like you see in the movies, with going to the church and kind of what we're talking about here, that's going to run you around probably $12,000 today. Okay. And it just depends on what you pick. You guys saw that with this experiment that we've been doing. You can do your own folders. Oh, we forgot the coach, lady.
No.
Did you get it?
So I have, that was transferred remains to the funeral home. I added on there because you did not bring that up at all.
Yeah, so vehicles are gonna cost too. So we'll need a coach to go to the service,
$295.
or something, right?
Oh, coach.
Or you could just find your local goth that drives a hearse.
Hey, so funny, but
You absolutely can as long
You
as
absolutely
the
can.
person is licensed funeral director.
nope, body's embalmed at that point.
But it has to stay with the body until disposition.
Funeral director can ride shotgun.
Well, yeah, but they're still there. That's what I said.
Yeah, but like what I'm saying is that you can use any vehicle.
You can.
You can deny that. That's another thing I want everyone to take away from this. Okay.
Trailer story? My mom, I'm from Northeast Iowa. My dad is buried up there.
Uh-huh.
My mom is very seriously considering selling the house and moving to a retirement community down here. I live here. My sister moved a lot because her husband's in the Air Force. But then she's like, but then when I die, you have to get me back to Lexington, but you could just throw me in a trailer or something. And I'm just like, what?
It's true. I had a guy that when his dad died in Arizona, he was a snowbird down there, and he called me. He was like, okay, now what was the cost to pick him up from the airport? I'm like, $5.95. He's, well, shit, I can do it for $5.95 in gas. Can I use my pickup? And I said, yeah, you can. So he was able to go to the airport and pick his dad up.
I mean, my ex-husband's a truck driver. I was
'Cause
like,
we
maybe
had
you get a
assumed
reefer trailer.
possession, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, legend has it if you die in Iowa and your body is unclaimed, you get picked up and taken to the burial site by a hay rack ride with an old John Deere tractor on the front.
Now I actually do have a question. I have a friend who just died,
Uh-huh.
and is this because she wanted to do this donation thing? She wanted her body sent to Michigan. I think that's where it is, and they have the field where they bury bodies to study them for
body
crimes.
farm.
The body farm. Did she have to be embalmed?
Okay, so
Or
let's
is
talk
it-
about that in pieces. So, what you're talking
Which
about there
area?
is anatomical donation,
Okay.
okay? Which is a very cost.
No, we're talking about two different things here. Are you talking about where the body goes? We're not talking about the body farm. We're talking about, like a hospital where your body goes to be.
No, they were talking about the body farm where they're donated to forensics to go out and rot in different ways.
Yes.
Right, so then they wouldn't.
She went to Michigan, is what I've heard.
Yeah, so then they really would not be embalmed because they want it just depends on like what state, if they're trying to decide how, how fast the body takes to decay from first day it's laid down till, the 10th day or whatever, they would not, embalm that body because they have to get an accurate reading on what bugs in that body and the tissues and,
Okay.
Or,
Sorry, I
no,
do
but
notice
that's
that.
very true, so probably not, but they might just as well want to study how a embalmed body decays.
Well, she.
So it would
is-
really depend on.
Right, she's
what they
not
wanna
religious
do.
at all, and she was
Yeah.
really into true crime, and so I think
Oh,
it's a
okay.
body farm where they study for
Yeah.
like criminology
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that stuff.
Now, how that's going to work logistically, if she was something that she was into, when you deed, there's things called deeded body programs, and they have to be affiliated with an organization. So, like University of Iowa, the nursing school here, Des Moines University,
doctor.
yeah, DMU, they both have them. They're the closest ones. So the body farm, what they do is there are other ones as well that collect a lot of bodies from around a large area. Like there's one out of Arizona, I believe. But once you sign over your body, you don't get to be like, oh, I want to be a crash test dummy or
Right.
I want to go to the body farm. You just give up rights and then you might go there.
Or they may just end up cremating you because they didn't need you, because they have to do it within 2 years.
So, but that's another cost effectiveness solution. If you can get into a deeded body program, the funeral home, there will be some interaction with the funeral home because they're going to need to transport you and in some cases partially embalm you.
But you would also need to keep those records that you arranged for that.
The hospital
Yeah.
should also, or the receiving facility would also have those records. In fact,
It's called
Just
deeded
because-
body.
deeded,
Yeah.
DEE,
deed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, just because you've signed up for that, say, I signed up for it, and by the time I died, I weighed 800 pounds. Ain't happening, they won't take me. Or the other way around, I weighed 200 pounds, but then I got down to 95 pounds. A lot of times I'll just like, or if somebody has a certain,
She was an alcoholic and she died of liver failure.
yeah, there's certain things that they want to do.
Communicable disease.
Mhm. And then there's that place in Colorado too that does the brain, isn't it?
Is that a specific brand you? I don't know.
I
about
can't
that.
remember.
Oh, and what if we're talking pagan funerals,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, what about those options where they have like the tree casket kind of thing where they bury,
Capsules, like-
yeah.
So I'm actually looking to figure this out myself because that's very new. But how that would look in Iowa is your death certificate would say that your disposition was being transported over state lines, because that is a form of disposition for the death certificate. Then you would have to coordinate, once you're past those state lines, I believe you have to be packed in dry ice, but you could contract someone to get you there. They're going to charge you for that, obviously. And then I think it's possible, even if you come from an outside state. I don't want you guys to quote me on that because, like I said, it's kind of a really new process. But yes, that's something that I want to get into as well. Also want to talk a little bit about green burial because that's a big pagan option. So Circle Sanctuary, I think if you folks mentioned last time, over in, is it Wisconsin?
Yeah. that sounds right.
Yeah, so that's the closest green cemetery to us. It would be kind of the same situation where your disposition in Iowa would be being transported over state lines. And again, with a pagan funeral and green burial with no embalming, or anything of that nature, you're limited to that 72-hour window in Iowa, okay? Unless you can get the body to cooling and then it comes out, the 72 hours basically freezes when you put the body in cooling. And that was another pun, but yeah.
But then they still make you have a vault.
True. Well, this cemetery would not.
Right, but in
But
Iowa,
in
you said
Iowa, yeah.
so.
Because there's really no true green burial in Iowa. So cemeteries will make you have vaults and caskets and things of that nature. Cremation, I would say, is the biggest form of disposition for pagans. I think that every pagan that I've worked with chose cremation in some form. Reason being goes back to kind of the first or second class where we were talking about talismans. Also, this goes back to how magic works. A lot of people will assign significance to those cremated remains as, you know, a connection beyond the veil through your ancestors. Cremation jewelry, pendants, mementos are all something that I kind of see when I'm working with a pagan family. Dividing up cremated remains so they can be with different people, that sort of thing.
But most of our people, have you ever had to do a family that had somebody die here?
Down
Where
here
we-
is it-
I mean,
Oh, here is in the church?
yeah, where we put them out there, their
No,
ashes.
I have not actually. I've never actually
Okay.
had to do I almost did one for a member, but they had a falling out with the church or whatever, so we went elsewhere. But anyway, but no, I've not had one here. Other point that I'd like to make, and we're kind of dwindling down here, people aren't going to understand, especially if it's a pagan affair or a pagan public affair. There are going to be people coming that do not understand pagan
Sure.
ritual and things like that. So I think it's important to accommodate those people. And when I say the pagan families I've served, it's been like 3 guys, okay, because we're just not that common, right? But I've noticed that death kind of brings out the worst in folks, and,
Sure.
and pagans. Although I don't want to make us victims and things like that, we are a marginalized group. So when death happens, a lot of times it's like, I want it this way. This ritual will be this way, and
The family
screw
wants
everyone
something.
else. I really try to be the balancing factor in cautioning people not to do that, especially if it's a public event, trying to accommodate everyone. I've had a scenario where I had a Catholic corner with a pray-do and a crucifix, and I had the pagan corner, and then I had some folks outside who refused to go in, but they wanted to listen on the outside. So my point is, try to be, you're planning an event. If you're having a funeral, and you do try to need to accommodate everyone, even though it's a very stressful time for the family. So. Okay, guys. Lisa, what was our grand total?
$10,803.
How much?
$10,803.
I wrote 10,000 down.
Nice. Okay. So
Wrote 12,000?
I wrote 12,000. I wrote 1,600, but I was like, I think that was the price of the casket we were looking at. So
Got
then
it.
I wrote 12,000.
anybody closer than 10,000 to 10,308? Oh, okay. Online, anybody? Okay. And then our second game, what was that thing that we passed around? Anybody have answers on
What
that?
did we pass around?
That,
It's right
right
there.
there.
Oh,
It
you
looks
weren't
like
here.
a lever to some.
I felt like some kind of
crank
crank.
it.
What is it?
I don't know what.
Can I see it?
Yep, it is a crank.
It's a crank.
Is it the
It's like
kind
one of
that-
those things they put in a window.
Lower the body in the ground, the thing.
Close. That's actually what closes locking caskets.
Okay.
It also
That's
raises
what's-
and lowers
And
the
raises-
bed.
Yep, inside the casket.
Oh.
So this is like your personal one?
We have a bunch.
They're-
but-
They're everywhere.
It was literally a last minute thing. We're like, "Oh, we're gonna be late," and then I was like, we need pens for tonight because we're gonna be doing a lot of writing. So I collect everything in my pockets every day accidentally and dump it on this one table. So I'm grabbing a bunch of pens, and then we had like 8 of these sitting there
It's
too.
not one table, it's my kitchen counter.
It's like one table.
Baby.
So do you have to be buried in a casket?
That again is going to depend on
No.
cemetery regulation.
You can be buried in anything you want, and you can make your own casket.
I didn't know.
But you can make your own casket, it's just that the cemetery may require that you have a cement vault for that casket to go into.
So why are they so, I just put you in the hole, but why do you have to be contained in something?
You
I
don't
guess.
have to be, it's just the cemetery wants you to be, because if it's city owned, some people think that's gross. Other people don't believe that. Some people don't believe in ashes to ashes, dust to dust. They don't believe in like going back to earth. They think that, you know, they want their body preserved and as clean and pristine and sober in there. There's people that want to know, how dry is my body gonna be if I take this $13,000 vault as opposed to this $1,300 vault? How long is my body gonna be impervious or, you know, without bugs or you gotta tell them, you know, it's a 75-year warranty.
I
That's
think
it.
a hole is better to put your ashes in.
Yeah.
The other thing is money too. So cemeteries, and Lissa ran cemeteries. That's what she's actually was a part of Sunset, which is right down here in Merle Hay. And then, but you know, a cemetery, you're going to sell a space to be buried in. You might be associated with the headstone if it's not an outside company. You're going to have regulations, and again, they kind of work with the funeral homes. Funeral homes make the money on the caskets. They make the money on the vaults and the outer burial container.
Merchandise.
Yeah. So it's just kind of it is a money game too. So, and I mean, and a lot of cemeteries are Christian in nature. Okay, that's why traditionally people are buried head to west, feet to east, because it's in the Bible it says that Jesus will come
We
from
have
one side or
bricks
the
or
other.
something out there, don't we? That
So,
they can have, where we put the ashes.
Oh yeah, they're on top. The
Yeah, they're
memorial
just
bricks on
Yeah.
top of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So they're set up in a Christian format. A lot of them, even if it were, you know, and everybody else kind
Because
of.
a lot of them started next to churches.
Yeah.
So that's why, and then a lot of them, you know, churches used to be, or the cemeteries used to be separated by denomination.
You're learning
And not
the
Spartans.
trivia because of cat trivia.
And then mausoleums is a whole another ballgame.
Yeah.
So
Ooh, family mausoleums.
they're, you know, they're left open inside of there so that they can dehydrate, if you will, rather than get soupy. Garden.
So I hope you're all better equipped to deal with a funeral, pagan or non. Are there any other pagan considerations you guys would think about? You know, something that you would apply to your service or something of that nature that we didn't cover, or any questions of that nature?
I guess, is there like a certain pagan ceremony that you do? You know, like I know there's weddings and
So
of that nature.
There would just be specific
Things.
rituals that you would do that are specific to you in your type of spirituality or your religion. So, I mean, you can incorporate anything you want, like, I suppose, and tailor it any way. And different spiritualities and religions are gonna be different anyway. I'm sure there's, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, when you look, if you're looking for a particular officiant that is in line with a particular deity or a particular belief orientation, you need to find them. But more than likely, if you're a pagan family doing a pagan funeral, you probably already have somebody that
yeah,
does that. Like,
and they would just tailor it, you know, what ritual speaks to you, what, you know, what songs speak to you, what, you know, they're just gonna ask you, just like you would the Christian or Catholic burial or what have you.
I've only done weddings, but we go back and forth and we talk about like, what do you want it to look like? What do you want to have involved? There's a particular deity that you want to use. Do you want to call quarters? Do you not want to? What does the ritual look like? All the different things like that.
Oh, go ahead.
No, well, we don't do animal sacrifice at funerals anymore.
Anymore? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no,
Did that
that's more
10,000 include the
joke.
$6,000 of catering?
You mean $7,000
Oh,
in
sorry.
catering?
Yeah, I think that's a little low.
That is low.
I don't think I added that in there.
Okay.
Oh, because I didn't circle it, you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
So it would be $18,003. Pardon me, thank you, sister.
I was just thinking it through. I feel like my mom paid the caterer directly, but I could be wrong.
And you can, in fact, any of these things, except for caskets, so that is the only thing you cannot order on your own. Any of these things you can do on your own. You can set up your own venue, you can pay your clergy, you can get your own flowers, you can get your own, my mom, if I would have brought in this 3-ring bindered, dark navy blue, orange filigree looking old lady sign-in book to her service, she would have kicked my ass. I went to Barnes and Nobles and got this leather bound lined journal, and we use that. I mean, like, you can specifically do anything you want. Funerals are for the living.
And you can order your own casket too.
Oh, yeah.
Funeral homes are required to let you order your own casket. Now,
But I meant I'm sorry, I just
Yeah,
meant from the
so-
casket companies that the
yeah.
caskets, you have to order it from a public casket ordering company. You can't go to
Yes.
like Batesville or, Aurora or one of the major companies. You have to order it from Costco. You gotta order it from Walmart. You gotta order it from Jimmy down the street that makes caskets in
Let's say up in Northeast Iowa, very Catholic.
Yeah,
There's a monastery that makes very plain.
Trappist.
The plain, yeah.
Yeah.
What they charge us.
Oh, I have no doubt. It's a
Nope.
tip.
Yeah.
We should begin with Tibetan burial practices.
Yeah, Tibetan sky burial.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's and we were talking about this a little bit before we started, but around the world, funeral practices are a lot different, right? So Tibetan sky burial, you're taken up to a mountain, basically drawn and quartered, and then vultures come down and just take you away.
Oh.
Interesting enough, the person who actually tears the body apart is a non-Tibetan Buddhist. They're specifically not Buddhist because
They can't be.
They're an untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then around the world, that's just a whole nother day because there's so many different things that can be done. But no, it's very interesting.
Just the difference between, you brought it up earlier about being able to be buried in the winter, just the water table down south, nobody's buried below, Up north in the northern states, they have a big warehouse at the vault company where they store all these casketed bodies in vaults so that they can bury in the spring, because they just cannot heat the ground. Their frost line is 2 feet and they cannot heat that. So here we can, 12
The New
inches of snow.
Like down in New Orleans and those places where
They
they
are,
are.
absolutely.
Yeah,
are.
they're ones that have crypts.
Oh, yeah, above ground.
Yep.
I ran a mausoleum on Laurel Hay Road for years, and you, not only do you embalm the body, but you also put a powder on them. It's a paraformaldehyde, so it'd be like a powdered formaldehyde, and you leave the casket open just a little bit, and if you don't, the casket will burp, and you could like hear it, it'll like go through there. Like if you don't get it, it'll like pop open. It's really loud. And as soon as you open one of those mausoleum things, like all these little bugs like out at you, you're like, so
That
bad.
and Indiana Jones right there.
So bad.
it has to be
So
snakes.
bad. It does stink.
Have you actually ever like dealt with like modern day like grave robbers?
I did, yes. I had to fire 2 people that were cemetery people that were opening niches. Like we had glass front niches at Merle Hay, and people would put, their wedding rings next to each other, or their first $100 bill when they came here from Cambodia, or or whatever. And yeah, people. I had 2 kids I caught. Yep.
Trying to get that stuff out of there.
Not trying, they did, and one of them pulled on the other one. Yep, he's like, well, it's in his car, go find it. I did, I went straight out to his car, grabbed the sack that was underneath his front seat of his car. The kid came back in, and walked by my office, he's like, hey Liz, can I get some candy? I'm like, sure, yeah, go ahead. I put that bag by the candy. He walked in, went to reach for the candy, looked at me, and took off running. We never seen him again.
Damn.
I had a gun pulled on me at service last year.
What did they want?
Not on, I shouldn't say on me, a gun pulled at a service I was doing.
Oh,
They wanted the casket open, and
Oh.
the mom didn't want it open, the young gang member that got shot. Very young, he was 17, wasn't he?
Don't remember, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think we're good unless there's any other questions or comments
Who needs
online.
this sign-in sheet?
That's me.
why did he want he wanted the
The
casket
dad, the dad and the dad's side of the family wanted the casket opened, and the mom did not want it open. She had been the custodial parent and been there his whole life, and the dad just showed up